I've worked on plenty of houses, but none quite like the Spectre Mansion. As soon as I stepped out of my truck and saw the place, I knew there was something different about it. The house loomed on the shore of a private pond, its stone walls buried under layers of creeping ivy in many places. The pond itself was still, too still, reflecting the house like a ghost of its former self. The pond was more like a lake, sprawling for at least 10 acres away from the mansion. Rumors about the place had been passed around the area for years. Stories of a widow, Clara Spector, who drowned in the pond decades ago. Well, the newspapers said she'd drowned. Most people you talked to would tell you she'd been drowned. Those same people in town also said she never left, that her spirit lingered, wandering, waiting for something. I didn't put stock in any of it. Townies loved telling wild stories about rich folks. Simple as that. More importantly, ghosts don't cut checks. The new owners wanted the place renovated, and I needed the money. I was already so tired starting work that day that I could scarcely bring myself to think about putting in 10 hours at this monster of a property. Worse yet, it was day one. It was always a heavy lift to get organized and get things moving. With one hand, I popped a few aspirin in my mouth to stave off the exhaustion headache I felt coming on. Earlier, when I turned into the property, I marveled at the once pristine stonework on the columns flanking the iron gate and wondered if I could get a referral for a friend to fix that up. I had parked my truck on the only patch of the cobbled driveway not consumed by moss. I headed toward the house and began my survey walk. I always walk the entire property, interior and exterior, before starting work, and record everything with my phone. That video can come in very handy later on if claims of property damage or shoddy workmanship come up. Much of what I found aligned with the messages I'd received from the new owners. Cracked foundation here, water damage there. I noticed some issues with the roof that I was going to have to tell them about. I wasn't looking forward to breaking that news. However, they were the ones who bought this place, and there wasn't a financial advisor in the world who would have given them the green light. So all the surprises that come with renovation are on them, I thought. I rounded the corner on the right side of the house. It was the closest I'd come to the pond. I hope these owners didn't have any ideas about swimming here. The water was beyond murky. The day was overcast, and that probably contributed to the effect, but I thought the water looked almost black. The dark sheen was broken only by the reflection of the upper floor of the house looming behind me. Studying the reflection, I was struck by how ornate the window trim was. The Spectres must have had dozens of craftsmen here for years putting this place together. Suddenly, the reflection changed. Some kind of mass that had occupied a window slid away as I stared. I turned my head instinctively, hurting my neck in the process, although I wouldn't feel it until later. The window was empty. Was it that window? In the line of three, I was almost certain I'd been staring at the middle one. Scanning the others, I saw that someone, with a sick sense of humor, had positioned a dress-form mannequin in the window on the left. The figure occupied the whole of the window. Was that what I'd been seeing in the reflection? That didn't make sense. It moved. Whatever I saw moved. Well, I guess I can look forward to meeting a raccoon in there, I said aloud, half to break the silence, half to talk myself into a rational explanation. The interior survey of the house was uneventful, and I was relieved to see there wasn't any additional damage to report to the owners beyond the contract we'd outlined. After leaving a voicemail about the roof, I unloaded my tools and got to work. I spent much of the rest of the morning making notes on what I was going to be able to handle myself and what jobs I would have to subcontract. The place wasn't falling apart the way a lot of these aging behemoths were. I'd certainly seen worse. I started work in the great room just inside the front door, tearing up floorboards to find out how much framing beneath needed to be replaced. As the day dragged on, I began to feel unsettled. Several times I tried to place the cause, but couldn't. It was when I stopped work to eat lunch that I finally made sense of it. I was sitting on the counter in the kitchen. It was probably the first time I'd stopped moving all day. In the resulting quiet, I heard water dripping, steady, and pronounced. Glancing at the kitchen sink, I saw there was no leak there. I wandered around the first floor, listening. No matter what room I was in, the dripping sound was someplace else. I was exhausted by the morning's work, so I decided to give up on that mystery for the time being and made a note in my phone to tell the owners that I suspected a plumbing issue. With my phone out, I remembered my survey video and decided to review a few locations that had me slightly concerned. The video was nearly 40 minutes long, so I swiped ahead to find the sequence in the master bedroom I was looking for. As I spooled the footage ahead, the moment I'd been at the lake lit on the screen. I thought briefly and decided I was, indeed, going to give in and play paranormal investigator. I found the moment I'd been facing the pond and holding my phone at my waist. Chances were that it wouldn't have been correctly angled at the water to give me a look at the window. But it was. I moved my finger gingerly along the timeline of the video so the images moved frame by frame. I saw the line of windows, 2 occupied with mannequins and 1 empty. I exhaled, not having realized I'd been holding my breath. "There you go. Nothing to see up there," I said aloud, and pocketed the phone. Relieved that no other guys were on the site to witness this ridiculous display. Toward the end of my lunch break, I would usually get a bit despondent about heading back to work on a big job. Probably just tired from eating and hitting that 2 p.m. lull. The lethargy and crankiness turned up right on schedule. I walked up the grand staircase. Turning into the hall, I stubbed my toe on a stack of tile destined for the bathroom. I cursed and decided I'd use this as an excuse to sit down a bit longer before getting back to work. As I sat, I brooded. Why do these people even need a place like this? The scale is absurd. You have a 4-car garage, and how many damn rooms do you need for sewing? I paused. No. 1. There was 1 room for sewing. There was 1 mannequin. But I'd just seen 2 on the video. I scrambled to pull my phone from my jeans, but couldn't get it free because I was sitting down. I leapt up and got the phone in my hand. Just before unlocking it, I suddenly became aware of where I was standing. Ahead of me was the door to the room with the second dress form mannequin. Or maybe there wasn't anything in that room. Again, more than a little embarrassed of my behavior, I slunk down the stairs and stood at the bottom, glancing up while I unlocked my phone and pulled up the video. I took a deep breath and considered stopping this now. I told myself I was just tired, stressed by the scope of the job, and creeped out by the rumors of this place. Of course, that was no use. Who wouldn't rewatch the video? I'm only human. So I did the human thing. I went back out to my truck, locked the doors, and pulled up the video. Returning to the sequence by the pond, I moved the video ahead frame by frame. The window was empty, and then there she was. A woman. Pale to the point of looking like an opaque blue-white. She was like a grotesque marble statue in that frame, a grimace of pain on her face, eyes closed and lips wrinkled in a tortured sneer. She wore a thin slip or nightgown. What I could see of her arms looked skeletal, as if the skin were wet paper draped over her bones. My heart rate had skyrocketed, and I thought I was going to hyperventilate, although I didn't know exactly what that felt like. I spent a moment trying to calm my breathing so I could focus again on the screen. It took all my strength to swipe ahead one more frame, because I knew that when I saw this woman move, my perception of reality would be altered forever. It wouldn't be a mannequin, or a painting, or a trick. It would be a thing, a ghost. Moving the timeline on my phone ahead one more frame, the woman disappeared from the screen. I scrubbed backward and looked again. She only appeared in that single frame. I didn't know what to think. Either this was an all-timer of a phone malfunction, or I was cracking up. Staring up at the house's facade, I weighed the reality of losing 3 months of income against the notion of encountering the thing I'd seen on my phone. I'd been hitting ignore on potential client calls for 2 years now, because there was simply that much demand for contractor work. I could find something else, easily. The phone chimed abrasively in my lap, and I flinched so hard my head bounced off the ceiling of the cab. It was the homeowner. He'd gotten my message and was not happy about the quote I offered on the roof repair. After a tense exchange, I saw my way out. I thanked him for this opportunity and told him it didn't appear we should work together. Tossing the phone onto the passenger seat, I felt a flush of relief. This job was going to be nonstop headaches anyway. I could make the money piecing together a few other projects in the coming weeks. I started the truck, and it wasn't until I was already in reverse that I realized all my tools were inside. Any contractor will tell you that your tools are the most essential investment you'll make in your business. I couldn't leave tens of thousands of dollars inside. With a groan, I put the truck in park and got out. I climbed the steps to the front door. Before I pulled the handle, I took a mental inventory of everything I had to get out of that house, and a plan for how to do so, making the fewest trips possible. Once I had that sorted in my mind, I didn't give myself time to think. I rushed inside and began breaking down my sawhorses, miter saw setup, and the rest of the large equipment I had staged in the great room, just inside the front door. I was able to get nearly everything out of the house and into the truck without incident. However, it had taken the better part of the afternoon. The sun was behind the house now, setting rapidly over the pond. The temperature was dropping fast. The news had said that the first frost may be coming. The last thing I needed was the table saw, and I was so determined to get out of there, I had the legs collapsed and was lugging it outside in less than 2 minutes. Behind the wheel of my truck again, I exhaled and put the keys in the ignition. I turned on the lights, and the front of the house lit up in brilliant white. Taking one last look at the place, I shook my head, half in disbelief, half in disgust with myself. I turned the truck around and took a peek in the rear view before angling toward the gate. The front door was open. There was no way I'd forgotten to close the door. Hadn't I just seen it closed? Securing the job site is day one stuff for a contractor, and I'd never left a house open before. I'd spent the whole afternoon so keyed up and frightened that I was more angry than anything else at this point. I put the truck in park and stormed up the steps. Reaching across the threshold for the handle, I froze. Just inside, only a few yards in front of me, stood the mannequin. Positioned purposely at the foot of the staircase, facing the front door. I heard myself muttering involuntarily as I gaped at the figure. Looking down at my hand, I realized I hadn't yet grasped the door handle. I fumbled clumsily for it, with my eyes fixed back on the mannequin. Just then, I felt something brush the back of my neck, a wet finger trailing across the skin below my hairline. I whipped around with my fist cocked. There was nothing there. I could see only the blinding beams of my truck's headlight. I'd had enough. More than enough. Grasping the handle and slamming the door behind me, I bolted to my truck and locked myself in. There was a heavy mist beginning to settle around the truck, and something told me this weather pattern was local to this property alone. In a panic, I slammed the accelerator down like a maniac. The truck lurched forward and began sliding on the wet moss that covered the driveway. I hit the brake too hard, only causing the truck to go into a spin across the cobbled courtyard. Mercifully, it came to a rest without colliding with anything. I looked up to see I'd come to a stop, facing the pond and the little patch of boggy lawn where I'd stood earlier today. The surface of the water had been like glass earlier, but now it was corrugated, as if a breeze or a fallen leaf had disturbed it. But neither had. The moon snuck from behind the clouds, and I could see more clearly the water's surface trembling. Now, in the lunatic moonlight, a pale, white head slowly broke the surface of the water. It rose ceaselessly as the rest of the figure emerged and stood in the shallow, black water. The woman I'd seen in the window now stood in the pond in a rictus pose, horribly decomposed and horribly real. She stared ahead, looking straight at me as I sat in the darkened cab of the truck. I only saw it take one step forward. I ripped my attention from the pond and put the truck in reverse. This time, somehow, I forced myself to back out slowly. The tires gripped the slick surface and I pulled out of the gate. I didn't look in the rearview mirror a single time. Once I was on the road, I floored it, tearing down the highway at top speed. If someone had been watching, they'd have seen a grown man speeding down the road in his work truck, screaming and rocking wildly in the driver's seat. Finally stealing a glance behind the truck, I saw no figure, no apparition, not even a set of headlights. I was alone. I burst into hysterical laughter, beginning to unravel after the madness of the last few hours. I sat a long time in my driveway when I reached home. Staring at the center of the steering wheel, I kept telling myself it was over. It was over. It was over. I have never told anyone in my personal life this story. That would be handing one more bit of my sanity over to the Spectre Mansion, surrendering the last piece of the version of me I was before it happened, before I saw her.